Welcome back to the Hoke English Academy podcast, where we bring you the best insights from expert teachers and practical tips to boost your English skills. Whether you're mastering business English or expanding your conversational skills, we've got you covered. Let's get into today's episode.
Ever feel like, you're in a presentation and you're just dropping these like truth bombs, you've got these amazing ideas and everyone is kind of just like nodding politely.
I'm not really getting it.
Yeah, their minds aren't blown, We're talking about those moments when you really need your ideas to resonate.
It's about going beyond just like giving information. You want to create an experience for them, an experience that's going to, stick with your audience.
Exactly. And thankfully we have a roadmap for that today. We're diving into some really cool training materials. They're from the Hoke English Academy. They're like the masters of being clear, communicating in a really impactful way, especially, for business.
Yeah.
And they have some really clever techniques for making presentations, for making them really land.
Yeah. What I like about them is that, they're all about practicality. You can actually use what they're suggesting. It's not just theory.
Totally. And their document, How to Present Key Points During a Presentation, like the title alone, I was hooked. They get right into it. How do you make sure that the really important stuff, those golden nuggets in your presentation, don't just like completely go over everyone's head, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that they remember those?
It's so easy to do that, though, right? You overload the presentation with all this info. But if it doesn't have that emphasis, if you don't highlight those key points they get lost in the weeds.
For sure. And their very first suggestion is, honestly, so simple. It's deceptively simple, but it's really effective. You turn the key points into questions. So instead of saying, like, we need to improve quality, you ask, how can we achieve like a higher level of excellence or something?
See, and that's great because you're shifting it from you just making a statement to actually engaging with the audience, making them think. It makes them work for it a little, They're not just passively listening anymore. They're involved.
Yeah. And you kind of plant that seed of curiosity, and then you're like building on it throughout the presentation. And you know what? I think it's especially powerful framing them as questions.
Yeah.
When you know that there might be some pushback on something. Like, say people aren't going to be excited about the idea of upping the budget for R&D. So you get ahead of it. You ask, how can we make sure we stay competitive, stay ahead of the curve, and really ensure our future success? You're kind of acknowledging that concern, but you're also very subtly like guiding them towards where you want them to go.
Absolutely. You're anticipating those objections and, like you said, kind of steering them in the direction you want them to go using the questions. I like it.
Yeah. And they don't stop there. The Hoke people. They also say use power words. You know how like when you bold something, those attention-grabbing words that just scream like, this is important.
It's like when you italicize something, like you said, or you highlight it.
Exactly. Think like essential, critical, or even a well-placed game changer.
Yeah. Though it's kind of like, anything that's powerful, you don't want to overuse it.
Oh, absolutely.
If you just keep hitting them with the power words all the time, it loses its impact.
I went to this presentation once, and the guy must have said critical like 15 times. It was critical this and critical that. And it got to the point where I was like, well, if everything's critical, is anything really critical?
Exactly.
But used the right way at the right time, it really makes things land. And speaking of landing, they also say where you put your key points is just as important as the points themselves. They actually suggest holding back on the most important stuff, and building up to it later in the presentation.
It's like that whole element of surprise. You want to create some intrigue, some anticipation.
It's true.
Just like in a good story. You don't reveal everything right at the beginning. That would be boring.
No one wants to know the ending on page 1.
Exactly. You have to build that tension slowly, introduce conflict, keep your audience engaged.
Okay, so we've got our key points.
Yeah.
They're framed as questions. We've sprinkled in some power words.
Yeah.
And they're strategically placed throughout the presentation. But how does it all come together? How do we make it flow?
That's where signposting comes in.
Signposting.
Yeah, so their next document, it's called How to Use Signposting in a Presentation. And it's all about, guiding your audience through your ideas and making sure that everyone stays, on the same page.
I like that you're bringing back that like storytelling element.
Oh, yeah.
Like even in, a business context.
Right.
We still respond to stories.
We do.
And instead of saying once upon a time, we're using language that like indicates shifts or emphasizes points or just brings it all together in a way that's really clear
Exactly.
and compelling for the listener, you know?
And it doesn't, like, those phrases, they don't stand out.
Yeah.
They just make the whole thing stronger.
Right.
Like the connective tissue or something,
Yeah.
And what I like about these Hoke people is they actually give you, like, real-world examples.
That's helpful.
Yeah, they even have audio samples so you can hear how it's supposed to sound in an actual presentation.
Because no one wants to sound like a robot reading off a script, you know?
Exactly.
Okay, so give us the goods.
Okay.
What are some examples? What are some of these golden signposting phrases they recommend?
Well, I mean, first there's, like, all those basic, transition words that they probably taught you in school.
Right, like first.
They seem really small, but they make a difference because they tell the audience you're, like, shifting gears.
Or you're about to introduce a new idea.
Yes.
It's like those, what are they called? Like the chapter headings in a book.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it gives your brain a little break,
Yeah.
You're like, okay, we're done with that part. We're moving on.
Yeah, and you can also get, like, a little more creative.
Okay.
Now you might be wondering.
Ooh.
Or here's where things get interesting. Things like that,
It's almost like you're giving them a little, I don't know, you're telling them to get ready.
Yeah, you're building that anticipation.
Yeah.
And of course, when you get to the end,
Right.
you want to have a nice, clear way to signal that you're wrapping things up.
In conclusion.
Exactly.
So it's like you're giving a sense of closure then. Like
Yeah.
you took the audience on a little journey and you're bringing them back.
Exactly.
Hopefully with like some great new information.
And they remember it. Right.
Exactly. They remember it. I think about some of the best speakers I've ever listened to.
Yeah.
The ones that I feel like I'm just hanging on their every word.
Right.
They use this stuff, but it's so good you don't even notice it.
Exactly. You don't even realize it's happening.
It's like magic or something.
It's like it's just happening naturally.
Right. It's like they're weaving this tapestry and we're just like along for the ride.
Yeah. And we get to experience it.
And we just get to enjoy it.
Exactly. And, it really speaks to the power of presentation skills, right? It's not about trying to, manipulate your audience or anything. It's about making a connection with them.
Totally.
It's about taking them on a journey. But you want that journey to be really clear,
Yeah.
engaging, and you want them to come away with something.
It should mean something.
Exactly.
So, okay, we covered a lot today.
We did.
We got some really valuable stuff from the Hoke English Academy.
For sure.
Key point emphasis.
Yeah.
Making those important takeaways really stick with people.
And we talked about how to do that.
Yeah, using questions and power words and just thinking carefully about where we put things in the presentation. And then, of course, there's signposting, those little cues to tell the audience where you're going.
It's all about keeping them in the loop.
Yeah, making it easy to follow along, It's like having a secret language for giving really clear and impactful presentations.
I like that.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave people with something to think about.
Okay.
Think about a presentation that you saw, maybe it was a keynote speaker or a TED Talk that you really connected with.
It could even be a coworker who just always gives the best presentations.
Yes. And ask yourself,
Yeah.
what made it so good?
Right. What wasn't about the way they presented that really resonated with you?
Because I bet you'll find, if you really start to analyze it, that they were using these techniques.
Exactly.
It's like you're getting a free masterclass by just paying attention and learning from the best, right?
So observe, analyze, and then try these techniques out.
Yeah. Try them out.
The more you practice, the better you'll get, the more confident you'll become as a presenter.
There you have it.
Go out there and, craft presentations that get people excited.
That not only inform them, but that inspire them. Right.
Exactly.
Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hoke English Academy podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. For personalized English lessons and more learning resources, visit us at hoke.school. See you next time.